Stop right there, don't go any further. If you haven't already seen part 1 of the PC gaming series, be sure to check that out before you see part 2. Okay, with that out of the way, let's dive into the golden age of video gaming, or as I like to personally call it, the golden age of PC gaming, ranging from around 1980 to the year 2000. The 1980s were a grand time, not only for video games, but for personal computer enthusiasts. Systems such as the Commodore 64 and VIC-20 were making their way into the markets and were relatively affordable. The 64 was a special computer as it allowed gamers to take advantage of the same controllers used by the Atari 2600 and others. Yes, joysticks, controllers, and other handhelds were still very possible for computers even in the 1980s. The Apple II was a big hit, and the high-resolution Macintosh was just entering the market, although it did prove to be less successful. The Amiga lineup featured the first 16-bit computer with a custom Motorola chipset, onboard sound, and integrated graphics that were unrivaled at the time. All of this, I should mention, occurred during the same decade. So what about games? Let's kick things off with one I know you're all familiar with, and that's Pac-Man, a PC port in 1982. The game was designed by a team of 9 people and became one of the greatest video game hits of all time, not just in the arcade, but on the PC. Most people don't know that you could actually play Pac-Man on an early 80s computer. The game of Donkey Kong was ported to the PC in 1983, no further description needed, and at around this time the famous game of Frogger was also released, in which a helpless frog must make it across a ridiculous amount of traffic. Instant classic, that one. Online gaming became a thing in the 80s as well, with games like Snipes seizing a great deal of attention from those who were packing identical network drives. The game itself was centered around the idea of search and destroy, which you can also find in modern games like Call of Duty. I can't make an 80s gaming video without mentioning The Legend of Zelda, which was released in 1986, as well as Outrun, the classic racing game that always featured the newest and hottest Ferraris of the era. The first of the Sid Meier series games, that is, those with his name in the title, named Pirates, was released in 1987. At this point, in-game graphics started to take off as computer hardware became cheap and powerful, a very paradoxical combination. SimCity, now referred to as SimCity Classic, was released in 1989 and marked the start of many successful sim games in which the player ultimately controls what happens and what goes where. My personal favorite was SimCity 4, but we've got a while to go before that game shows up on our list. By the turn of the decade, gaming potential took a drastic turn in the right direction with the introduction of independent graphics accelerators, better known today as video or graphics cards. These contained independent processors dedicated specifically to video output and included rendering cores and dedicated video memory apart from system RAM. These dedicated video cards took a significant load off of the CPU and allowed for large chunks of data to be processed and rendered simultaneously. IBM's very first card, known as the monochrome display adapter, was nothing like this, however, and instead only carried the potential of displaying text characters in unique fashions, and at a very low theoretical resolution of only 720 by 350. And while relatively unimpressive on its own, the MDA definitely paved the way for 3D graphics. Taken for granted today, three-dimensional graphical interfaces allowed for the development of first-person shooters, of which Doom is a noteworthy implementation. The game was originally released for the personal computer under IBM's rebranded MS-DOS operating system. Doom was played by an estimated 20 million people worldwide within the first 2 years of its release, and was succeeded by Doom 2 in 1994. It was because of games like Doom and Mortal Kombat that the Interactive Digital Software Association began rating games under the ESRB. Needless to say, Doom was not rated E for everyone. Resident Evil was released and ported to the PC in '96 and marked one of the first successful horror-style games. If you've seen the movies, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. In the same year, the first actually affordable graphics card was released by 3DFX Interactive and allowed PC gamers to expand their PC gaming horizons. Quake was released in 1996 and became the pioneer of the online first-person shooter experience. As the internet became much more mainstream, it became a staple for PC gamers. The game Unreal became a clear indication that modern multiplayer first-person shooters on the PC were here to stay. In 1997, Carmageddon was released and became an icon simply for its gruesome nature and ferocious, gory attitude, a trend that many video games were following at the time. I'm throwing this one into the video because it was so controversial in so many countries, including the United Kingdom, which for a short amount of time refused to certify the game until all of the blood in the game's code was removed. The BBFC later backed down from this stance and certified the original version. In other countries, including Brazil, the game was outright banned altogether, no exceptions. Yeah. I'll end this segment of the PC gaming series with a game that I'm sure most, if not all of you have heard of, and that's Counter-Strike. Back to first-person shooters, this game possibly took it all to the max in the year 2000. It allowed for indefinite customization, competition, and gameplay with various modes, guns, and maps to choose from, well, enough maps to keep one occupied for a good while at least. Counter-Strike also signifies an interesting turn in PC gaming, especially as it in its own right is essentially a mod that is a modification from an original game, Half-Life Counter-Strike. Mods were particularly unique to PC gaming, exceptions being some game sharks and those who could modify CD-ROM code, which was much harder to do. Needless to say, PC gamers had the joys of most released video games in general, regardless of the game's intended platform, thanks to savvy coders, a bit of illegal mischief, and a very strong, passionate, thriving PC gaming community. If you liked what you saw in part 2 of the series, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, give it a thumbs down if you feel the complete opposite, or if you hate everything about life. Yes, I'm giving you that option now. Be sure to click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and stay tuned for multiple PC builds here on the channel that will take place in the coming weeks. This is Science Studio. Thanks for learning with us. Oh, and stay tuned for part 3.